Thursday, October 27th. This is a end of the day SPY report, and today on the daily chart, we essentially had a slight red bar. We stayed essentially below the midpoint of the prior day, took out the low of yesterday, which was anticipated after seeing the shooter bar, and started our way down to the first target without really reaching it today. In terms of the price action, if we just look at the 15-minute chart and look at today, we had a pre-market range kind of in the middle of yesterday's bar, and then we opened up with a neutral bar and started lower. There was an attempt to try a short. It didn't continue, when it hit the pre-market lows to start, and then it had sort of a rebound where it was time to either break even or take a small loss. It never got above the pre-market highs in any significant way, and then I shot a midday video here saying I still felt the bias was overall down, and you can see we drifted lower for the rest of the day, and then after hours we're a little lower, and it all makes sense given that this kind of bar typically produces a bit of a pullback in this overall uptrend that's been taking place for the last few weeks. So we are sitting here tomorrow with a red bar that still has a target to meet down here. When I see a red bar close near the lows, I do expect it to continue lower. It seems like we're at that point after hours. Weekly chart is, with 1 day to go, you can see it looks like we might be getting a failure looking week, but depending on how tomorrow ends up. But at that point, if we really get a big failure looking week, by like on Friday, I would kind of expect like a big shooter bar looking price bar. Then I would expect continuation lower next week, and then that could be a 2-down week with targets down here. So until we really get that, I'm not going to necessarily predict that we're going to pull back here. The monthly chart, we are sitting here with a few days to go in the month. It's a green bar. We're sort of starting to sell off near the end of the month. To me, overall, it's not the greatest looking reversal bar. We'll see where the month ends in a few days. It looks more like this type of bar where you did, make a new low, and we started up for a lot of the month green, and at the end it didn't really amount to much, and we continued lower. Same thing here. If we don't end up too strong, I'm not going to consider that a reversal month until we get a 2-up month going into November to start targeting those areas. So I'm not convinced, that there's any sustainable rally at the moment, but we're still playing the upside, or at least we had been all the way up through here for the last couple of weeks. And now is the first day to begin to get back with the downside, kind of see how the week ends, see if we get a 2-down week. At that point, we can start getting aggressive to the downside a little more. If we don't really get any follow through to the downside, then we we'll watch the daily chart to look for moves back up. So again, no real great actionable signals at this point. You can kind of go day by day the way I'm playing it. Like today, for example, I had that downward bias, there's no doubt, and I bought puts on a bunch of stocks. I bought puts on Microsoft, on Tesla early up here, went down on Coinbase. I bought puts and we headed lower. I didn't post it, but I bought a Meta put on this first move up, and a 2 up, 2 down on the 15-minute chart that headed lower. So my bias was definitely to the downside. I decided, I looked for individual stocks that seemed to have some promising opportunities, but for now, we'll just kind of expect broadening action below this low, then see if we can target maybe even this low. I see a little gap in here between the high of this bar and the low of that bar. So I could see maybe taking out these 2 lows as the next move down, and then kind of determine what's developing as the week comes to an end. So again, a little tricky in terms of the pure, the way that it kind of started down, then started up, then went down. But nevertheless, there was still more or less a downward bias on the day, given what you were looking for, on Wednesday after the shooter bar. So see what happens tomorrow.